It's chaos.
It's a different type of Sunday scary.
It's your newest obsession.
It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast.
We're the Hornsby sisters. I'm Katie.
And I'm Megan.
I think I'm not the only one to say, wow. Just wow. We knew this weekend was going to be 100% drama-filled, anxiety-inducing, and potentially momentum-changing. And it was all three, and so much more. This whole weekend, I was truly at a loss in predicting what would happen. The only thing that I really knew was that this weekend was going to be a defining point in the championship battles between not only Lewis and Max, but also Ferrari and McLaren. It did, in fact, become a defining point for the 2021 season. The battle we saw between Lewis and Max all race long will go down in history. Lewis once again proved to us that he is the greatest of all time, going from 5th place to 1st with incredible driving. The Brazilian GP has always been a point of excitement and entertainment. It joined the Formula One calendar in 1973 at Interlagos. In the first 3 years, the Brazilian fans were treated to some glorious home victories by Emerson Fittipaldi in 1973 and 1974. And in 1975, we had a Carlos Piace win, where the track was later renamed after him in 1977. Fast forward to 1991, where we saw an incredible patriotic win with Brazilian Ayrton Senna winning his first Brazilian GP. And in that race, we saw his gearbox malfunctioning, and by the end, he was only driving in the 6th gear, but was able to hold on and take victory. And in honor of Senna and the 30-year anniversary of his first Brazilian GP win, Hamilton, whose longtime hero is Senna, honored him with a very special tribute helmet. In 2007, we saw our retiring Iceman Kimi Räikkönen win the World Championship at the Brazilian GP after going into the last race of the season 7 points down and in 3rd place. So he came back for an ultimate win. And in the last 4 Brazilian GPs, we've seen 3 different race winners: Max Verstappen in 2019, Lewis Hamilton in 2018, Sebastian Vettel in 2017, and Lewis Hamilton again in 2016. This year, we saw Lewis Hamilton, the man of the weekend, storm through the field to victory. The weekend started off stressful for many with last-minute equipment delays. The engine and cars were MIA due to weather delays, diverted planes, and crews running out of flight hours. So most of the cars didn't really show up until late Thursday, which required many teams to work well past midnight to prepare for the one and only Friday practice and qualies. The FIA waived the usual Thursday night and Friday morning curfew, and the most impacted teams were McLaren, Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, and Haas, who had late arrivals of their chassis, whereas Mercedes and Aston Martin were able to prepare their cars to a certain level, but were waiting on their power units to arrive. So it brought some turmoil to the beginning of the weekend. Pirelli also received the tires late, and we had some issues in FP1 with Max about bumpiness and just general tire issues, which prompted some questions to be asked if there was enough time for Pirelli to really properly balance those tires. There's quite a lot that goes on behind the scenes in between races, and recently a lot of people who've been listening have asked me how they move the cars and are really astonished when I say that they're disassembled and reassembled in order to do so. How else can you really get 20 cars across the world in less than 4 days? Not to mention, it's not just the cars, but it's all the equipment, the trailers, the pit walls, and the teams themselves. They're packed up and shipped to the next location, which is kind of where we get that nickname of the traveling circus, because it's crazy. It requires an extreme amount of logistics and creates issues when these logistics fall through. And we could see a bigger issue with this next year with more races, but most important is how tiring this can be on the crews, the engineers, and the drivers. And I want to talk more about the logistics and the sustainability of all of it in a formation lap, so keep your ears open for more on this subject. The weekend definitely started out in turmoil, but let's get into the racing. Lewis Hamilton went fastest in FP1 with a top time of 1 minute and 9 seconds on his third flying lap. This was really interesting because they weren't pushing the engine as hard as they have been in previous FP1s this season. Lewis went on to take a new internal combustion engine, receiving a 5-place grid penalty that would be served Sunday in the race. Toto Wolff explained that degradation on the engine had prompted the change, and Lewis has 2 usable engines for the rest of the season, the new one and the current one that was brought on in Turkey. Toto remarked that if they had kept the engine, they probably won't be competitive in Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi, which is key if they want a chance to beat Red Bull in this championship. So the switch allowed for not only more competitive driving this weekend, but hopefully for the remainder of the season. The beginning of the chaos really started in qualifying. Lewis Hamilton went fastest with a 1 minute and 7-second lap that Red Bull simply could not match. And after qualifying, Lewis, Max, and Valtteri pulled their cars in the top 3 spots. And 2 things happen here that are important for the story. The FIA technical delegate suspected that Lewis Hamilton's rear wing did not allow for the maximum opening of that wing. And Max Verstappen, in his investigation, touched Lewis Hamilton's rear wing. And later on, when he was asked about it, Max kind of explained that since there's been a lot of technical conversations around the rear wing, he just wanted to check to see how it flexed on the Mercedes car. Lewis Hamilton got referred to the stewards, and Max also got referred to the stewards because they both basically broke the rule. And the rule around DRS is that the flaps can only have a maximum opening of 85 millimeters, and Parc Fermé regulations do not allow for other drivers to touch the competitors' cars. We had to wait until Saturday morning to find out what happened. Max got handed a $50,000 euro fine for breaking these rules. He had some spicy comments to say about it, saying that, you know, he hoped the FIA goes out and has a really nice dinner. He would even pay for that as well. And then Lewis was disqualified from qualifying, which forced him to start the sprint race at the back of the grid. And I know Megan and I are going to have things to say about this, so that's all I'm going to say for now. These penalties brought us into the Saturday sprint race. It's the 3rd of the year. It's the last one we're seeing this season. And with Lewis in P20, Max led the grid on medium tires. Valtteri, however, started on soft tires, which allowed him to get a jump on Max in the start. Valtteri went on to finish in first and gain those 3 extra championship points. Max finished in second and Carlos Sainz in P3. The biggest story and amazement to come out of the whole sprint race was Lewis making his way to P5 from P20th in just 24 laps, which is about a quarter of a race. It was fucking impressive. And he had an incredible overtake on Lando Norris. He minimized all of the damage that came from the disqualification, and it was one of the greatest comebacks in the history of F1 in proportion to the amount of kilometers that were actually raced. Truly, truly, truly incredible. I don't know what else to say about it other than it was astonishing to watch. The race once again started hot going into the first couple of turns. Lando Norris ran off the track due to a puncture, thanks to a run-in with his old teammate Carlos Sainz. Bottas got away well, but Max took the lead into turn 2, giving Sergio Perez the opportunity to also get around Bottas. We saw a safety car in lap 5 after a run-in between Stroll and Tsunoda. We had another safety car, this time virtual, in lap 10, thanks to a run-in between Schumacher and Raikkonen. There were a lot of run-ins. There were a lot of safety cars. We had our first round of pits around lap 27, where Hamilton attempted an undercut. Bottas was finally able to pit and go for the undercut, getting around Sergio, thanks to yet another virtual safety car due to Lance Stroll's car basically falling apart and dropping debris everywhere. In lap 48, we saw Max and Lewis go off track, causing almost another incident. For a split second, I had flashbacks to the previous 2 sprint race weekends, and the FIA noted the incident but went on with no investigation. Lewis had this, of course not, answer to Bono after he let him know that there was going to be no investigation, and I think, as Christian Horner said to the stewards, it's just racing. There was no touch. It was clean. They both made it back on track. And I agree that it's just part of racing. I think if it were to have happened again and Max pushed, Lewis off track, I think at that point the actions would have deserved an investigation. But after incredible driving all race long, Lewis overtook Max in lap 59. And it looked almost easy for Lewis to then extend the lead to over 9 seconds between the two, giving him the win at Interlagos. It was difficult, and then it was very simple, and a much-deserved win at that, even if I can't say I really saw this coming, especially at the beginning of the race. Max had great pace. I never underestimate Lewis and his ability to be a comeback kid. This is the 11th time this season that Max and Lewis finish 1 and 2 in either order, and the 3rd race in a row that they've been in the top 2. Neither of them is really letting the other one get too far out of reach, regardless of the car performance swings that we've seen. So a truly incredible race by all. Megan, hello. I think it might be time to talk about our race debrief.
Hello, everyone. I am beyond thrilled to talk about this race and this entire weekend. Katie, I'm going to start us out. I'm going in hot today because I got a lot we got to get through.
Start us off. Hit me.
So, first question that's not a question, but more of a discussion topic is, let's go ahead and just dive into the 2 penalties. I'm coming out the gate.
Yeah.
So let's start first with Max's €50,000 penalty for fiddling with the back of Lewis Hamilton's Merc in Parc Fermé. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, honestly, I was just shocked. That was my first reaction because we all know Sebastian Vettel is crowned the inspector of cars, and a couple of videos came out of him touching the cars. There's one that I've seen multiple times on Twitter where he takes his foot and he's rolling the Mercedes back and forth. And so I honestly didn't even know it was a rule. I assumed it was a rule when you think about it, oh yeah, don't touch other people's cars, duh. I was shocked that he was sent to sent to the stewards for this. And
she made a slip there. She thought we were in a sorority and a fraternity. They got sent to standards.
I know, I almost just said standards. That's so embarrassing. I might cut that out. I might leave that in. Well, you'll have to find out. You might never know. Okay. Back on track. So, I was shocked. What were your first reactions by it?
Honestly, I was shocked. Then I went through this phase of straight up just awe. And then I started reading the articles and actually kind of understanding what was going on. So I've done a ton of research. Obviously, that's who I am. Basically, I read all of the things that the FAA put out, and it seems like the stewards are acknowledging that it is a habit, that Sebastian Vettel investigates. Other people go over and fiddle, and they look, and they touch, and everything. So it was interesting that the stewards were just acknowledging that this has become a habit, but that they've just kind of allowed that habit to continue, even though it really is against the rules. And a rule we didn't know about. I didn't know either.
I think it's very interesting that they chose this race of all races to be hey, wait a minute. That's not allowed, Max.
I feel like the only reason they enforced it was because he had touched the rear wing when the rear wing was that is really hard to say, and we're going to stumble over that all episode. I think the only reason they enforced it is because he touched the rear wing, which was the subject of an investigation that he didn't even know was about to happen.
Yeah. I even asked Megan, I was wait, I need some clarification. Did I miss something? Did Max know that we were going to investigate the rear wing, or was that just he saw it, he took a look at it, yada, yada, yada? And I mentioned earlier in the episode that he came back and basically was just I just wanted to see how it was flexible.
Yeah, especially because it's something that he's used to people doing. So in his mind, he probably got out, took off his gloves, looked at his car, and then was oh, interesting, let me check that out. Not even realizing, he had to have known it was a rule. But if you see everybody doing it race over race over race, then you think that it's acceptable for you to do it. So you are right. I think it was interesting that the FIA was we take a stand now. But
Yeah.
do you think that the...
Good timing.
Very good timing. I mean, it was kind of funny. But do you think that the FIA basically took a stand to, like, preempt Mercedes saying something?
Potentially. You might be onto something with that. I mean, it kind of leads... I know you might ask a question later about what Toto Wolff said.
Don't go into it yet. Don't go into it yet.
I'm not going to go into it yet, but I think you are on the right track of let's mitigate the she said, he said, whoever said by just acknowledging it now. Especially, like you said, because it was the rear wing that was under investigation.
I'd be interested because I tried to find as much information as I could. I don't know. There is like a time period where I'm unsure of if Mercedes said something that sparked them to do something with the stewards, if it was Mercedes that found the fan video that was originally sent to the FIA. I don't know that trail of things. I really don't know if we'll ever know kind of exactly, the domino pieces. Maybe Netflix will finally fill it all in next year.
I don't know. Netflix has a lot on their plates for this year.
Like, is the season going to be like 45 episodes long?
I hope it's more than 10.
It's going to be like a proper Love Island season.
I would
where they just keep coming.
We should write them a quick DM and say, hey, I definitely think the season should be more than 10 episodes.
I mean, you're going to need like more than one episode for each race.
Yeah. There are going to be things that are definitely left out.
Do you think that, okay, so now we've had the FIA taking a stand on this whole Parc Fermé touching of other people's stuff. We've seen Seb joking around with it, like, ooh, is the front wing only going to be 25,000? Do you think that we're going to see either the drivers stop acting ridiculous in Parc Fermé and touching other people's stuff, or do we think we're going to see more of these penalties?
Ooh, I don't know. They were all joking about it, which makes me believe that. I mean, they make millions of dollars every year. I think if they really want to go touch one part of someone else's car, they're going to do it. And they're going to pay that fine.
You're like, 50,000. Max made a joke of it. He's like, you guys go out to dinner, enjoy some really nice wine. Actually, invite me and I will pay for that dinner and you don't have to use your 50,000.
Yeah.
I was deceased.
He also won't have as many FIFA points on his laptop. He specified it was going to be on his laptop.
I did try to Google what that meant because I don't play FIFA.
Oh, no.
And then I just got down a rabbit hole and I had to circle back out of that.
That's pretty good. Now we know that Lewis Hamilton also is paying a fine.
Oh, yes.
Let's just talk about that. He's paying a fine for unbuckling his seatbelt in the outlap. Tom Bellington said on Twitter, I mentioned this to Megan earlier and I have to bring it up for the episode, but he said now the stewards can afford to have dessert as well. So
I also saw a tweet after you sent that to me. I went back on Twitter and I was just looking around and someone was like, the FIA Christmas party about to be lit, and I just died.
That's so good.
Leave me on the ground where I was because it's just perfect.
Yeah, phenomenal Twitter this weekend.
Incredible. Okay, before we go on, let's circle back to Lewis.
Okay.
He also faced some FIA rulings. So he started the sprint race in P20 after being disqualified from qualifying results. Let me get your take on that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if it's quite fair. The whole disqualification. I don't know if have we ever seen that before? I don't think I have.
I don't think I have.
It was it didn't feel right.
It seemed a bit aggressive.
It's all of a sudden the FIA is pulling out all the aggressive things. Part of me was are they not giving him a penalty because he's already serving a 5-place penalty for the engine change? Were they looking for something else? The FIA sets the regulations, and I don't care if it was just 0.2 millimeters off. There are regulations. And they didn't follow them.
I completely agree with the regulations part. If it's a rule, it's a rule. It has to be followed again and again and again. I think what bothered so many people, and now that I look back and I have more information, I think it slightly bothers me that we have seen adjustments for damage during qualifiers, under Parc Fermé rules. Mm-hmm. Last week, we literally saw Red Bull holding itself together with racing tape. It looked like duct tape to me. I think that's semantics. But I mean, 0.2 millimeters after the race. Who knows if that was damage that happened during the race, before the race? So I think there is some question of, is this damage? Is this malicious intent? I don't think it's malicious intent because it was 0.2 millimeters on one side.
I don't think it's enough for them to be like, yeah, we did this on purpose. Like, they're not cheating.
No.
You don't cheat with 0.2 millimeters.
And Toto Wolff even came out and said that was actually a disadvantage for them because it was 0.2 millimeters on one side, only on the one side. So the middle and the other side didn't have the issue. So that would have actually caused, resistance. I don't know. I think maybe I need to dig more into the whole disqualification aspect of it. But looking back, I think what does frustrate me is that we just found out, just read a ton of articles about it, that the FIA didn't watch Max Verstappen's front-facing camera when Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton went off track. So to me, I'm like, okay, 2 days ago, you kept a rear wing overnight for 0.2 millimeters and spent all night investigating, and then you're not thorough in the race?
It doesn't add up. And that's why I was so shocked to hear about the fine. And that's why I was so shocked to hear about the disqualification, because I'm like, when did the FIA get such a big cock?
Yeah. Like, when did they decide that they were going to start enforcing things so
aggressively?
Consistently, inconsistently.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Consistently, inconsistently. And you can tell it's consistently, inconsistently by the way that the drivers respond to hearing what the penalties are, or that there was an investigation, or that it was dropped.
And you can tell because they're all joking about it.
Sarcasm runs deep in Formula One.
It's a joke.
The whole thing is a joke. Sometimes. I don't know.
I think this weekend seemed a little jokey.
It's the FIA. It seemed out of control, out of nowhere.
Out of complete left field.
Yeah.
Very strange to me. Very, very strange. But, okay, this all perfectly leads into my second question. It's all about
I know what's coming.
Favorite team principal, Mr. Wolff. So, this weekend, we heard Toto Wolff on the radio saying, damage limitation, fuck them all, after the sprint race. And then in an interview, he said, in the next few races, we're going to look at every single race tape that's going to fall off of a car and ask questions. So clearly we see Toto Wolff is ramping up the aggression and being very honest and open about his issues with certain individuals in the paddock. What are your thoughts?
AKA Christian Horner and Red Bull.
AKA Helmut Marko.
Yes, more specifically. Here's the thing. I feel like this is the energy that they were serving us early on in the season when there was like the back and forth about the insignificant things. I can't even remember them right now. And then all of a sudden everyone got friendly and was like, it doesn't matter. Or we didn't really hear much about it. And then all of a sudden it's the end of the season. We're neck and neck. We've got Lewis and Max. We've got Helmut Marko versus Toto Wolff. It's like we knew this was coming. I knew something was going to happen, and they were going to be like, we're going to all swing our big cocks around. I can't believe I've said cock twice in this episode. 3 times now. They have just come back, and they're like, wait a minute, we are aggressively competing to win the world championship. If you're going to look at our shit, we're going to look at your shit. Where's all this aggression coming from this weekend?
And why weren't we seeing it over the last 5 races?
Yeah.
It all stopped after Monza. We had this cooling off period post Monza. I don't know if that was post crash. That was,
I think,
calming.
Well, I feel like we heightened. We had our climax heighten of Monza with the crash. And then everyone was like, let's cool off a minute. And then here we are in the end of the story.
What's crazy is that all 3 weekends with sprint races have been peak conflict between Red Bull and Mercedes. So if you don't like sprint races, then you clearly just don't enjoy drama in the paddock.
Yeah. And I think I've decided after this weekend that I'm a fan of sprint races. I don't want them at all races.
Oh my gosh, there'd be too much chaos.
It'd be too much. I couldn't I honestly couldn't keep track of it all.
I felt like I needed a whiteboard, and I needed to have like a flow chart of this happened, then this happened, while simultaneously this was happening this weekend.
When we're searching for results of, okay, qualifying results. Okay, what's the grid? Okay, there's too much going on.
It was utter chaos to keep everything. And I felt like I sat on Twitter all weekend, not that I don't do that every race weekend, but this race weekend, it was... My iPhone yelled at me multiple times.
Oh, do you have the limits on?
It just like tells me when I've been doing it too much. And this weekend it was aggressively telling me to chill out. Well, it's because we spent all Friday night waiting for the FIA to make a decision.
Waiting, yeah.
I feel bad for anybody in Europe who tried to stay awake for it. At least for us, it was, dinner time, nighttime on a Friday night. We were already awake, but people in Europe were up all night tweeting and waiting, and it didn't come.
All night. Oh, this isn't coming till the morning. They're at their nice fancy dinner that Max is paying for.
They bought dinner before they actually got their paycheck. Oh, yeah. They're like money for Max.
They knew. They were like, we're about to find Max. We're going out to a nice dinner.
I'm dead. Too much. That's amazing.
Okay, let's jump back into the race because there's one thing I want to talk about that you and I really haven't addressed yet, and they're safety cars. And we saw 3 of them this weekend. We saw 1 real safety car and 2 virtual safety cars. So let's just talk about what safety cars even do in the race. Are they beneficial? Are they not beneficial? Are they important? Are they critical? All of the deals. Give us, I know you've got the definitions in your head, so go ahead and, she's the fact girl. So go ahead and give us the definition of safety car versus a virtual safety car.
Okay, here we go. So safety car is when a legitimate car, right now it is a Mercedes AMG and it's sexy as shit. Mm-hmm. Wish I could drive it, comes out.
Isn't it Burt Midlander still driving?
Burt Mylander.
What's his last name?
It's Mylander.
Mylander, okay.
Okay.
Keep going.
So he comes out, drives a sexy car. I always see it and I'm like, wow, I want it one day. Okay, total deviation. So the safety car comes out with the goal of slowing the pack down to make it safe for the marshals to clean up whatever they need to clean up on the track or on the runoff areas around the track. As a result of that, the field of cars is actually going to bunch up because the safety car is intentionally slowing them down to condense them to allow for a break to actually clean up. That will neutralize the race, slow everyone down, and will lead to a heightened restart because the safety car will have to get out of the way before they can cross the starting line and kick it off again. That normally lasts like 4 or more laps depending on the severity of the damage. A virtual safety car is called virtual because there is no actual safety car on the track. The cars themselves have to limit their speed based on the specific track and the sector that they're in. They get alerted of the speeds that they need to maintain on their dashboard that correspond to the sector that they're in at the time. The goal of that is to slow the cars down to make it safe for the marshals to clean up, but will maintain the distance between the cars. So a virtual safety car is going to be used when there's not as much damage to clean up. Safety car, there's more debris on the track, and a virtual safety car is only going to last like 2-ish laps.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that you cannot pass when there's a safety car.
Correct. You cannot overtake, but you can go into the pits to only change tires, which will ultimately result in someone overtaking you while you're in the pits.
Yeah.
Okay, let's circle back to the benefits and the disadvantages. Do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So we saw Lando and Yuki out. Well, we saw Lando out with the puncture, and he was in the back of the pack. And then we saw Yuki have that run-in with Lance Stroll, and then he went into the pits. Both of those cars got fixed. They headed back out onto the track, and they're both in the back of the field. What does a safety car do for them?
It allows them to catch up. So if there was not a safety car, they would have been, I think it was something like 45 seconds out was where Lando was. It might have been longer than that. But so that would have been a lot more for him to have to essentially make up throughout the race. But the safety cars allows for anybody in the back of the field to bunch all the way up together. They're going to be separated by a couple of car lengths, and it will allow for a restart that puts them back in even race contention. Not necessarily competitive contention, but to actually race.
Amen. We also see strategy come into the restart with safety cars.
Correct. So I think the best example, or at least the best like view of it from this race, was when we had I think it was the first virtual safety car, and that's where we saw the 2 Red Bulls, the 2 Mercs, and you see all 4 of them in the line coming down the main pit straight, and you can tell that the Mercedes are like ready to hunt.
Itching. I like that. Ready to hunt.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Lewis Hamilton was glued to the back of Sergio Perez's Red Bull. Like, he was like, I'm ready. You even saw Valtteri like getting as close to Lewis and trying to be like, I'm going to go, Charles. Don't even try.
We're in a different league. Please back up.
Please just take a chill pill. But no, we also saw, sorry to get back to your actual question about restart strategy. You saw Verstappen get off the line quick.
Yeah.
So he's the pace car in that scenario. Once he crosses the line, he has until, I think, the finish line to decide when to take off at full speed. And so his starts, I think both restarts, he did a phenomenal job of grabbing the lead quick and being able to pull away, which is necessary for him.
And he pulled this like sneaky, slithering back and forth. They're all heating their tires up. They're holding them off. And he waited to get to the finish line to go and take off.
Well, and they also have to be careful because, so while they're doing this, their brakes are cooling down too. So at a track like Interlagos, wow, slipped my brain there. And a track like Interlagos, if you're going down the hill into it and your brakes are cold, you want to be careful not to lock up.
And we saw a little lockup, I believe, with Hamilton or one of the Ferraris. I think even the commentators were trying to decide who it was.
I think it was
after
Leclerc.
One of the restarts. Yeah.
I think it was Charles. The other thing we need to talk about while we're talking about safety cars is that the benefits that you get from pitting during a safety car. So Bottas pitted during the second virtual safety car. So while his pit stop is going to be the same length, I think it was 23 seconds, it will still be 23 seconds, but it's going to it's less of a loss in race time because everybody out on track is slower. So you aren't going to lose as much time or as many places in the grid if you pit during a virtual safety car. I think it was Sergio, and I think Verstappen, and I think Christian Horner all said that Red Bull got unlucky because Bottas was able to capitalize on the virtual safety car because the rest of the top 4 had already pitted.
Valtteri came out and took the space from Sergio Perez.
Correct.
After the virtual safety car. Yeah. So that was a great little mini formation lap in the middle of an episode about safety cars.
I think this race was a perfect one to talk about it and why I think it's a good idea that we spent the time on it, because you got to compare the effects of a regular safety car versus the 2 virtual safety cars, and you got to see the impacts of pitting during it.
I'm going to bring us to our next topic, which is going to be hard for both of us to talk about because we are such McLaren fans, but we have to talk about their performance these last few races, especially this race that we saw. And I know that the start is whatever because Lando got the puncture, but then we saw Daniel Ricciardo have to retire due to some engine issues.
Power loss.
It's basically the title, the third place title, is theirs to lose. Ferrari's up by 31.5 points. It's not over, but it's really not looking good for McLaren, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
I was pretty disheartened and pretty sad for Danny Rick. I think what was really sad but also gave me a little bit of hope is Danny Rick's post-race interview when he himself was like, I was feeling a lot better about today before the power loss and the retirement. But that hope, he's like, we had the pace. We were still in the battle. You know, we could have made up some places. We knew it was going to be difficult, but we felt like we could capitalize on at least more points than one. But then to have the retirement was just awful. I think if the McLaren strategy had worked, their plan was to go for a 1-stop. Ferrari, they knew were going for a 2-stop because they did medium tires. I think if that had happened, or his retirement hadn't happened, then we would have seen Danny Rick at least be fighting with the Ferraris. But no, overall, it was just an unfortunate performance day.
It was. I will say there was one glimmer of hope. I mean, it's only 1 point, but Lando was able to go from P20 to P10, which is an incredible drive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, honorable mention. I would give that an
honorable mention, yeah.
For sure.
Which I loved because the day before he had basically been talking about how, Lewis Hamilton fighting his way through the entire field was so impressive, and that,
yes.
Hamilton he should have to drive a car with 3 wheels instead of 4 because he's just that good. So then to see the next day Lando make 10 spots up was
Lando
cool.
was like, yeah, if Lewis can do it, I can do it too.
He's got such potential. I can't wait for his future.
I know. He's going to be one of those drivers that long run is going to have a great career.
Absolutely. Okay, before we get into your last question, I have one because we're kind of talking about this, the midfield, the McLarens. Outside of the overtakes we saw between Red Bull and Mercedes, what was your favorite overtake of the race?
I think I might have 2. I was impressed by both of them. I know, it's hard for me to pick my best. I also really struggled to pick winner and loser today. But anyway, lap 61, I'll go with my favorite one. Lap 61, we had Pierre Gasly. And I bet you knew I was going to take this one. But we saw Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, both of the Frenchmen, have this battle. They went into turn 1 together on lap 61, and Gasly made his way to 8th place after an incredible overtake. It was back and forth, and Ocon came back and was like, no, it's mine, and Gasly held off, came back around, and shot ahead and kept that position. We then also saw Gasly come after Fernando Alonso the next lap, so incredible drive, P7 for Pierre. He qualified P5, lost a couple places, but how can we not? How can I not bring him up? We've got to mention him at least. I almost picked him for my winner, but I didn't. I held off on that. He's just been showing extreme consistency, and not only am I excited to see where the end of this season takes him, but I'm really excited for next season, and I hope he capitalizes next season on the new car.
I hope so too. It's funny because I let you have that one, but I took his other excellent overtake. It was Gasly on Lando in lap 30. It just was awesome. It was right after Carlos Sainz had just done a great defense against Pierre Gasly, for him to just make a quick move on Lando and just zoom past him. I was like, chef's kiss.
Yeah. He has found his place in the grid, and he's doing great.
I think he finally gets the car, and you can see that he's not taking stupid risks. He didn't do something stupid when Carlos Sainz was defending against him. And I think Pierre of his Red Bull era would have done something dumb, but he just waited.
Yeah. He knew he has his patience. Time. He has his balance. He's got his footing. Yeah.
It's cool
great.
To see.
All right, my one other overtake, it's quick. Danny and Seb were fighting back and forth for P8 as well at one point of the race, around lap 21. Daniel was able to overtake Sebastian. It was barely shown. I think we literally only saw the replay because it went back and forth again. Daniel overtook, Seb came back, and then finally Daniel overtook, and barely shown on the TV. Again, I think it was literally only the replay, but I had to mention it because it was great driving.
No, I think you're right. It was only the replay, and I think I missed it the first time, but I went back in the race because I wanted to catch something. I don't remember what I went back looking for, but that's when I saw it as a replay.
Yeah. Ugh. There was some action between Lewis and Max at the time, and then we cut back.
This race was totally we barely saw the rest of the field. It was a lot of Max and Lewis. I mean, rightfully so. No hate.
Rightfully so.
No hate on the production this week.
Yeah, we'll hold off on that till maybe next week.
Sky Sports, I'll come for you next week.
Okay, my third question, my third topic, which I know we always address, but I think it's important because I said at the beginning of the episode, I knew this was going to be a pivotal moment in the 2021 season. I knew this race was. And we finally got a sprint race without a crash between the two leaders, but we still saw some drama. And I just want to talk about the battles for the championship and where they are now. I think let's start with Lewis and Max. Let's start with Mercedes and Red Bull.
So, going into next weekend, I mean, it's already race week again, essentially. We have Qatar. That's going to see Red Bull and Mercedes. Red Bull is down by 11 points. Mercedes in the lead for the constructors. And Max is in the lead by 14 points over Lewis. So that is close.
Close. And striking distance. Striking distance.
And this means, like, DNFs cannot happen. We have been saying that. Toto has been saying that. But now it's really true.
It's so true. If we see one DNF by either of them, that's the championship.
It's over.
And I'm gonna say, like, at the start of the race, I thought Max was maybe gonna take this one home, and I thought that was gonna be the championship. But nope, here we are.
I think a lot of people thought that, though, because a lot of the articles and a lot of what you were seeing on Twitter, on Instagram, post-Mexico, was the turning point for Red Bull. Like, it was going to be a Red Bull run from then. We weren't hearing that from Red Bull. We weren't hearing that from Toto. But I think a lot of fans and commentators, Paul DeRosta, were hyping up the fact that Red Bull, it was their year. So I think this happening, Lewis coming off of, or having a rough weekend where he is able to he did overtake everybody in the field at least once, some people twice. He was in perfect form. And so now this is we're at a crossroads where we have 3 races. I did do some math, and my math was also agreed with someone online because they did the same math. If Lewis wins the next 2 races, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, Max gets second in both, and neither Max or Lewis gets the fastest lap, so that goes to like Checo or Valtteri, they will go into Abu Dhabi tied.
Ooh, my jaw just dropped, and I just got chills. I have goosebumps.
I genuinely think they're going to go into Abu Dhabi either tied or 1 or 2 points.
Okay, so say that again. If Lewis wins both the next races, scratch fastest lap,
and Max is takes
second,
then they will go into Abu Dhabi tied.
Wow.
If my math is correct. But someone else on Twitter also had the same math. So if I'm wrong, someone fact check me and let me know.
Yeah, let us know. We're not the strongest at math. And we're okay with that. Okay, that's huge. I truly think it's going to come down to the last race.
There's no doubt in my mind.
And there's going to be tears.
From somebody.
I think from both. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, we mentioned it a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about the battle between Ferrari and McLaren.
So I think this race proves the DNFs can't happen. Because with Daniel Ricciardo's DNF, now we have Ferrari, which is up by 31 and a half points. That's what happens when you DNF.
Do we think these past 2 races with McLaren were just kind of oopsies and we're going to come back on track and we're going to fight? Or do we think that Ferrari has really, truly found the pace and they're going to carry us to the end of the year?
So I think it's both. Ferrari has found their pace. We saw Carlos Sainz get 3rd in the sprint race. We saw Charles Leclerc get P5, Carlos Sainz get P6. We saw Lando Norris in P10 and Daniel Ricciardo DNF this weekend. This weekend was a Ferrari success and a McLaren oops.
Do I dare say that Ferrari's back?
Don't jinx it. Knock on some wood.
Yeah. See, I said, do I dare? All right, I'm knocking on some wood.
Don't jinx it.
I knocked on some wood. They might be, though. I don't think I'm jinxing it. I think I'm manifesting it even further.
Are you just casually commenting? Let's hope you go with just a casual comment. Not a legitimate prophesization.
Prophesization? I don't think I'm that powerful yet. Anyway. Okay, last battle. We've got AlphaTauri and Alpine.
I don't even know what's going to happen between the two of them.
Tied again. And you know what's crazy? It was luck that Pierre Gasly took 7th, which equaled the 9th and 10th place for Alpine. Right? 9th and 10th or 8th and 9th?
Ocon and Alonso were 8 and 9. Gasly was 7.
Okay, so 8 and 9 equals 7th place. So we're back evened up.
Yeah, we're at 112. No, yeah, 112.
112?
They each got 6 points.
I don't know. I would think that with Pierre Gasly's consistency, AlphaTauri is going to eke it out.
I'm going AlphaTauri.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to eke it out. They're going to get there. Yeah.
I just don't trust the consistency of Alpine, especially on the next 3 tracks, especially with the form that Pierre Gasly's in, especially with the fact that I do think Yuki is finding his tires underneath him. All bets are off.
All right. Cool.
That's what I'm going with.
I'll take it.
I did just check my math and I was correct.
Good. Glad you did that check.
It was really bothering me because they're 14 points apart. Okay. Sorry, okay. Had to go back to that.
All good. Bring us to your winner.
Okay, so my winner, I've already kind of hyped him up, is Carlos Sainz of Ferrari. So, 2 reasons why I'm giving it to Carlos. First off, it is very clear that he has found his pace. He is comfortable in that Ferrari. He is getting what he needs out of the car. And it is consistent now, I would say. You know, we've had 2-3 races where he's showing that pace. I'm also giving it to him because of the defense on Lando, which I already talked about in lap 29. I thought that was wonderful. It shows that he's comfortable in the car and he trusts the car. Ultimately, you know, yes, at the beginning of the race, we did see the contact between him and Lando, which dropped him 3 places, but he was able to recover to minimize the damage that incident did and end P6 and only like 2-ish seconds behind Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
So incredible racing. Incredible racing. We saw him get points in the sprint, which was critical to the fight between Ferrari and McLaren because literally every point counts, which is why I don't want to discount Lando Norris making it into P10. And we also saw him finish P6 in the race. I think he had a great weekend. I think Ferrari had a great weekend, but definitely Carlos.
Yeah, and that brings me to my winner, which was Ferrari. And I said I struggled choosing a winner, and my loser's a team, so I decided to keep my winner a team. 5th and 6th place finishes, 31.5 points ahead of McLaren. They seemed absolutely unbothered on Sunday. Like they were just there, and they just did their best, and their best was 5th and 6th. So, yeah, I'm going to say it again. Ferrari's back.
I think that's
an affirmation, too.
Not a jinx, an affirmation. I mean, this is their innovation, their engine innovation, their new hybrid engine, and that gives me so much hope for what we're going to see out of them next year. 2022, they might be killing it.
Yeah, I think they will be. Well, we don't know, but I think they will be.
I think they'll be in much better fighting shape. That brings me to my loser, which we've already kind of mentioned, and I'm going to go through it real quick because I don't want to talk about it a lot. My loser is Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
He had a rough sprint. He lost 2 places on the first lap. He started 8th. He ended P11th. Just kind of a sprint race. The race, he had to retire due to that power loss. This was his first retirement with McLaren this season. Well, with McLaren, period. And it was his first retirement since Austria of 2020, which was the first race of last season. So 34 finishes in a row. I think it's just kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. We always say that it's never easy when someone DNFs.
Especially when it's someone that I adore.
Yeah, it's one of our favorites.
He did look great in the mustache, though.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that. I was like, okay, chill. Chill on that.
I was like, ooh, post-race interview? He's sad. Mustache is okay.
So, that brings me to my loser. I said it was a team, but Lance Stroll is kind of to blame for their loss. Lance DNF. Too much damage on his car from the run-in with Yuki, and was spewing that damage all over the track. Seb finished 11th. Not super impressive. Seb did blame the timing of the safety cars on their poor performance, but I really just think Aston Martin has maybe fallen off this season. I think they're really just holding on to the end. They're currently sitting in the 12th and 13th for the driver standings and the 7th for the constructors. They are 44 points behind Alpine and AlphaTauri, the Tide. They are like the biggest drop-off after 5th and 6th place. So, I don't know. I'm underwhelmed by their performance all year.
I'm very underwhelmed, and my only glimmer of hope, and I think I have this because I listened to the Lawrence Stroll interview on Beyond the Grid. It genuinely feels like Lawrence is playing the long game. Mm-hmm. And I think that they just really didn't put the money into the car this year. I think their plan was to full send it into a new race home base and a new car in 2022. So I am excited to see what's going to happen next year. I'm very excited to see how Seb and Lance do in the future as a partnership. But I've kind of written them off for this year.
Yeah, and they were also battling some rumors this weekend with Otmar moving to Alpine. Megan just told me that that's false information, and I was like, yeah, that seemed very strange.
Yeah, Otmar in press conferences on Thursday was like, I don't know what these are talking about. These are just like reporters making things up. Oh my gosh, speaking of crazy press that we didn't talk about yet, Alfa Romeo accidentally, maybe potentially announcing their driver with the garage in Hong Kong. So the garage in Hong Kong literally said, welcome. Zhao to be congrats on being the first Chinese F1 driver. And a picture of it went viral on Twitter, and everyone was like, is this official confirmation? No idea if it's official confirmation. On Tuesday, when this episode comes out, we will get official confirmation, though.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully it's Tuesday. I did see some things on Twitter about hashtag Grazie Gio, like, thank you, everything, Antonio. And, I got sad. I couldn't read it.
I don't want to talk about it yet.
Yeah, we'll discuss that once the official announcement's been made, but...
Stay tuned for next week.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's wrap it up with our honorable mentions. We already had one. We had two, actually, already. But one that I really wanted to talk about was Sergio Perez. He's coming off the brilliant race in Mexico, and he did a great job defending Lewis. We saw a lot of back-to-back overtakes this race, and Sergio Perez was one of them. Lap 17, Lewis uses the outside to get around Checo, and then Checo comes back and repasses Lewis, taking second place back. And eventually we saw Lewis get around, but phenomenal racing. I think Sergio has found his calling as the second seat Red Bull. I don't want to say that that's all he's good for, but he's done phenomenal this year, like we've said, and I think he's great.
I think if we're going to mention second drivers as honorable mentions, I think we have to give a shout out to Valtteri.
Definitely.
I mean, he won the sprint race. He was able to get fastest off the line yesterday to prevent the points that Max could have gained by taking the lead in the sprint race. And then today I think the phrase that they used after the race was henchman, that the second drivers are acting as henchmen. Yeah. And it did feel a little henchman-y when you see we had Lewis and Valtteri switch spots, but then when it was Lewis against Max, behind them, protecting them from the rest of the pack, it almost felt like that was Checo and Valtteri. It was a weird kind of like thing, but I was like, it does kind of like feel like that. Like these two are up front racing it out. Who's going to win? It's going to be one of them. And then Checo and Valtteri had their own little battle and trying to keep the pack, trying to keep each other from getting close, I guess.
Yeah, and I think they've accepted these roles at this point of the season. Like, they know that the battle's on, and that's where they're going to hang out, and they're going to do their best. Especially with, like, taking fastest laps from the leaders.
Yeah, because we saw Valtteri take the fastest lap off of Verstappen last weekend in Mexico. This week, we see Checo doing the same thing, taking it off of Lewis.
Yeah.
I also think that mathematically it's not possible. Going into this weekend, it was mathematically impossible for either of them to become a title champ, like to take the title. So the best thing to do right now is to fight for your teammate, but also for your team, because Mercedes and Red Bull are still in it. We don't know who's going to win that.
Yeah, and like I said, we won't know till the end.
Which is why a DNF from any of the four of them could change. Well, it could definitely change the constructors.
Yeah, but could also alter a lot of other things going on.
Because this was the race where we got to finally see all four of them in it, and Valtteri and Checo playing their quote-unquote roles.
As the henchman.
I think that's a little bit better than, like, wingman. Henchman seems a little bit more like,
Like, I'm
wingman
here.
seems
I'm
a little
supportive.
like, ugh.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, that could be semantics.
We'll just have to wait and see. Up next is the Qatar GP in Doha at the Losail International Circuit. The 57-lap race takes place on Sunday, November 21st for round 20 of the 2021 season. It is the finale of the late season triple header that has had Formula One traveling to 3 continents in 2 different hemispheres. The Losail International Circuit was built on the outskirts of the capital city of Doha to host Qatar's first MotoGP event in 2004. This year will be the inaugural Qatar Grand Prix, with the country hosting the Formula One World Championship for the first time. It has taken the place of the cancelled Australian Grand Prix. Formula One will not return to Qatar in 2022 due to the country hosting the FIFA World Cup, but will return in 2023 with a 10-year deal to host F1. As it was designed as a motorcycle racing track, it's fast and flowing, with over 1 kilometer of the track making up the main straight into Turn 1, making up the circuit's one and only DRS zone. I simply cannot wait to see what overtakes are going to happen on that main straight. Hopefully one on the last lap to really make that race spicy. Most likely between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, who are going to be going for that 1-2 position. And speaking of the two of them, Verstappen leads Hamilton by 14 points in the Drivers' Championship, and in the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes has the lead over Red Bull by just 11 points. We truly thought Mexico would be the momentum swing that saw Red Bull take both championships, but as we just saw, Mercedes fought back in Brazil, so this championship is far from over.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us at Dirty Driving Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Until next time, stay dirty.